Welcome to Making Your Miles Count Production, an educational program to all Canadian lease owner-operators with your host, Robert Scaper.
I think you were talking, or did we already? You already say this. You go into the United States, people are just, they got to skip to their
totally different
atmosphere and stuff like this, you know?
It's very, very quiet, very peaceful.
Yeah.
Very relaxing.
Really. I'm waiting for that for Canada.
Yeah. My fuel mileage even went up because of that. The air is lighter. Like it's unbelievable. Yeah.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Well, you know what? Actually, that is the truth. Not because of the election. Not because of the election.
Everything doesn't suck.
We've been looking for ways to increase our fuel mileage. Okay, there was a time where we did good fuel mileage, and I thought it would get better after I did the engine last year, but it hasn't. And so we've been praying and asking for direction and wisdom and what to do. And you know what? I did a few little things, and my fuel mileage came up 1.5 miles to the gallon.
Whoa!
Oh wow!
What were those few little things?
I won't say that on the air.
Oh, really?
Okay.
But yeah,
you put mothballs in your
no. Actually, it's not a secret. I changed fuel filters, air filters, and I borrowed an ECM from a guy that has a different program in it. Mine comes from BC, his came from Quebec, and the one in Quebec is a whole different program than what I have. So I borrowed his ECM. And
you mean you swapped it?
Yeah, like I took the numbers on the back matched. His was 1 year. His was 1 year newer than mine, but the numbers in the back matched.
Wow, I've never heard of people doing that.
They downloaded my ECM, and then they put not the program. They had to change a few tweaks, like the cruise control, tire size, stuff like that. They had to change to what mine was. Because that's what my truck. They didn't change the anything in the power or the torque. They can't do that. They just changed some things because some of the things weren't working when I put that ECM on. And
when did you do that?
About a month ago.
Oh, really?
And I'm thinking, like, I got to do something. And I was going to get that program. There's a guy here that installs that program, but I didn't want to spend the $3,000, and this guy he blew the engine on his truck, so he parked the truck. He's done with it. So I asked him if I could borrow it, and yeah, sure, not doing anything with it. And yeah, I went from 5.2 to 5.4 at the highest. We did last trip, we did as high as 7.4.
Oh wow.
Pulling the same load.
Yeah.
And we never went under 6.4. So that's 1 mile to the gallon more.
Yeah, that's huge.
Just from a different ECM.
Different program, and I changed my air filters. Put new air filters in, and it right away. I noticed the very first trip it started running smoother, and so now we're going to run it one more trip, and if it does that good, then
change that out.
Wow. I'll pay for it.
Yeah.
Oh sure. Yeah.
Because it'll pay for itself very quickly.
Absolutely. A couple of months is paid for.
Yeah.
For sure. Awesome.
So that's interesting.
Yeah. So it didn't have nothing to do with the election.
No.
It just happened at the same time.
Sure. Yeah. I don't believe in coincidences.
Oh, yeah. What did we say? Over 55?
Yeah, that's right.
No, but you know what? That brings us right back to the beginning. Like, my truck is very minimal electronics, like very little programming, whatever. I can tune a little bit, but at this point I don't really want to do a whole lot of tuning, because but the computer part of our trucks is crucial in getting fuel mileage. Whereas it used to be you just turn a screwdriver, that should do it right there. You know, and it just rolls black and away you go. It didn't matter, you just go. But now you just the smallest little adjustment on the ECM, and you get fuel mileage or torque or you can't walk away from the technology that's out there nowadays.
No,
and some of it is actually good. And I've heard a couple stories about, or I've heard one guy told me, he said that there's a new truck in Europe. No, not a new truck. Scania in Europe. And this is secondhand. I haven't read it myself, but apparently,
Scania?
yeah,
somebody was just talking to me about this week about Scania.
they developed.
It's in northern Alberta. They got a bunch of them.
Oh, do they?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're bringing them into Canada now.
Because he said Scania now has trucks running up and down in Europe that have no DEF. It's just anyways, they've built them somehow so that they've got next to no emissions on there, and they're doing better than the emissions trucks.
Yes.
But if you look
That's
at
what, and I don't know the details. I want to look into it, but
I know who told me this about Scania trucks. It's that same guy who built a house that is a third his house and 2/3 shop
right.
or whatever,
Okay,
and he had all these engines and everything and stuff.
Yeah.
Like that was the guy who told me.
they actually want to manufacture Scania now in Canada.
do they?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Like, my question is, like, Europe is like, we're second-hand Europe. Like, their technology is far beyond us.
Yeah.
They should be able to compare as far as road temperatures to Canada. Like, there's lots of places that can build stuff, but it won't run in Canada.
Right.
But Europe should. Yeah. And I'd love, like, our trucking companies or our manufacturers, they don't have competition.
No.
Yeah.
This is what we need.
Yeah.
And apparently their emissions regulations are far superior or higher than us.
When we were
they're making it work. Like
2019, we were in Ireland, Scotland, and Germany. And we went across on a ferry from, where did we go? I forget now, but we were on a ferry. And we had all the time in the world to look at trucks. And so Kathy and me, we spent a lot of time looking at trucks. They are very different than here. They have, especially on the back side, like on the drives, they're all automatics. They have 3 air lines going to each brake pot. I don't know what the third line is for. They have sensors on every brake pot. And on the wheels, there was so many sensors on the back of those trucks. I said to Kathy, I don't know how that would work in Canada.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But they're very efficient.
Yeah.
But there's in Ireland, especially, their speed limit is they're all governed at 55 miles an hour. They can't go faster. They all pull triaxles. I don't know what they pull for weight. I talked to one guy, but I forgot to ask him about the weight.
Yeah.
He was actually from 2 or 3 countries away. He was waiting on his appointment, but they run from country to country, and so I asked a lot of questions. But they're all governed at 55 miles an hour. They all get paid by the hour. They don't get paid by the mile. They get paid by the hour. Their computers tell them when to shut down. It'll tell them where they can shut down.
Yeah.
Like it's just so far beyond where we are at today.
Yeah.
Like we're Tesla, kind of where Tesla's at, the cars. Like that's where their trucks are at.
Yeah.
It's you
See,
can.
What I've heard, like I've talked to a couple guys who've actually come here from driving in Europe, and they've been here for a few years already. So Europe has escalated or improved, but apparently they only have one drive axle where the other axles are tags, but they're also rated higher than what ours are because they're triaxles. Like they can do ridiculous weights out there. And the other reason they're all short nose and they're all very short wheelbase because of the roads out there. Like they have to get into stupid roads but
you have a hard time with a car. Never mind with a truck.
Yeah. So, but it's some of their technology, yeah, I'd love to see that out here.
Yep.
Do you remember, and this you guys would all remember, the industry before Volvo? Do you remember the industry?
Yeah.
Before Volvo.
Yeah.
Remember when Volvo White or whatever, they started coming in?
Yeah.
I had a client, this was, oh goodness, close to 30 years ago now, 25, 30 years ago. And he came into my office. He says, I'm buying a Volvo. What do you think of it? And I said, at that time, they had just come into North America.
Yeah.
And I seen a lot of truck manufacturers come and go. Okay, probably the biggest one was Ford. Ford was in the long distance truck for quite a while, and they invested $2 billion to get this thing going with Ford trucks, and back then I actually bought a Ford.
I drove that truck.
Yeah.
And to be honest,
Yeah.
that as far as ride goes, that was the best riding truck to this day that I've
really?
ever ridden. It's heaviest beast on the road.
But okay,
And doors this. Oh, it was just nice.
Okay. But here was the thing. They pulled out.
Yeah.
So when I bought it, it wasn't 3 or 4 years later that they basically sold their plant to Freightliner. I think it was Freightliner that.
Well, it was Sterling first.
Sterling. Yeah. Okay. However,
Sterling bought, or Freightliner bought Sterling.
Yes. Okay. Whatever it was. So the argument that if somebody invests $1 billion or $2 billion into something doesn't really mean anything. Are they going to actually stay in the industry or not?
Yeah.
So when the client came in and said, I'm thinking about buying a Volvo. What do you think about it? I says, I have no idea at this point whether Volvo is going to have a toehold in the North American market. They might be great out in Europe. Now, he was from Europe, and that's why he wanted a Volvo. And I said, I just don't know. I don't know if they have the parts that need to be managed through it. There for quite a while. It was at least a year or 2 years or something like that. Go ahead and buy a Volvo if you want, but try and get parts, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so then they had to partner with different places in order to get the supply chain together with parts. And it was not a mess, but it was an issue. And so he was right in that time, and he asked me, and I said, I just don't know whether in 5 years whether they're going to be around or not. And which is true. It was a good evaluation of that. Now, not only were they around in 5 years, they've actually done considerable market share growth.
Yeah.
They got a nice, solid toehold. Not a toehold. It's very nice, especially up here in Canada. And in my opinion, it's as popular in Canada because it comes from Europe, and Europe is more attuned both to the driver as well as the environment. Like they have 10, 15, 20 below in Europe. Now, yes, we have 35, 40.
Yeah.
But the North American manufacturers don't think 30, 40 below.
No.
It freeze your tail off kind of a situation. So they accommodated the driver and they accommodated the equipment much better. Volvo did, and that's why I think they gained market share here in Canada. Yeah. So I mean, if this new one, what is it, Scandia or whatever, if they are attuned to that, then bring it in by all means and go toe to toe with the North American guys.
Yeah.
And North American guys, if they want to survive, they have to
pull up your socks.
Pull up their socks. Get better engineering in there and figure out what the heck they're doing wrong. Yeah. Because
you know what? That
success breeds
in
laziness.
that you can kind of think of it as importing drivers too.
Yeah.
Like we're importing a truck. Okay. The other trucking companies are going, no, we've got you can't take our tradition, our market share, right? But you know what? It doesn't bring fair competition. too much regulation, and it keeps the trucking companies that are established on their toes.
Yeah.
You know what? You can't just this is how much it costs. Deal with it. No. Oh, there's another guy coming in. I've got to sharpen my pencil. I've got to keep my
competition is great.
Yes, it is. Yeah,
Keeps everybody up.
and the people that have worked hard and see that the freight rates aren't going up the way they'd like them to. It's yeah. See, and that's part of my issue. Back and forth about immigration. We're letting a lot of people in, and they're driving trucks, and we are inundated. We've got too many drivers out there right now, and not enough
as
freight.
opposed to what everybody says, we got a driver shortage.
Yes. No.
We do have a driver shortage.
There's no driver
There's steering
shortage.
wheel holders and then there's truck drivers.
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
suppose.
We have a lot
And-
of steering wheel holders.
Yeah. But the thing is, that's part of the industry to keep it sharp. Otherwise, we just get fat and bloated. And I don't know. I compare it to the dairy industry, where they're government regulated, and
Yes.
you just what do you call that?
Supply side.
Supply and demand.
No, supply side economic. That's basically the government
Socialism.
supplies something, and that's all that there is.
Yes,
And
It's
that's
socialism.
Socialism. Yeah, milk is like that.
Yeah,
Eggs is like that.
Eggs.
Chickens are like that.
yeah,
Chickens are like that.
yeah, yeah. So what
not
do you-
beef.
No.
not pork.
No.
But those three.
Yeah.
And
Well, that there's going to be a change with
Yeah.
that. See, I was talking to a friend of mine about exactly that, because Trump doesn't like that. What do you call that again? Where we have our dairy and poultry
quotas.
quotas, the
Okay.
quota system. Okay,
Yeah.
I call it.
That's Canada, only in Canada.
That's only in Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were talking about that, and I don't like the quota system, because there is no free market
No.
thing about it. We were talking about it, and I said the only thing that the quota system does for Canada is give us higher quality product than the US. Okay, if you compare our eggs, our milk, or dairy products, or our chickens to any large producer in the US, we have far superior tasting
Well, okay,
stuff.
tasting, yeah, but we get used to a certain taste, and like you take
Yes.
chickens. If you chicken down in the United States, it looks more yellow,
Yeah.
right? And ours is white.
Yeah.
And we think white, oh, that's good.
Yeah.
And they think they're down here. What is wrong with your chicken? It's all white. It's all up. A lot of
That-
here
that
they
could- yes.
quality, but they feed things differently. They
Oh,
feed
absolutely,
They feed
yeah.
corn in the States, and we
have
wheat,
grain.
grain up here.
Grains, yeah. So
It just
maybe it is better. I don't know.
There's a company in Winnipeg that actually pays their truck drivers by the mile or by the hour.
By the hour.
Yeah.
There are whole companies that do that, but they have specialized freight. There was one, I don't know, I can't remember the name of the company, but they haul oversized, overdimensional, highly specialized stuff,
Yeah.
and they base it straight on contract. And I know when we're developing, we have our own software for accounting, okay, and everybody, pretty much, I'd say 98% of all carriers out there pay by the mile, and so when we're writing our program, we're doing it so that you look by the mile, right? Mm-hmm. And eventually you're going to be able to go online and take a look at what your fuel costs are per mile last month and stuff like this, and that's what we're designing it so that everybody has good managerial understanding of what's happening. But how do you deal with and we have a guy at a carrier that pays by the hour. I can't remember, somewhere in the vicinity of $150 an hour. Okay, that's including the truck that he has. Okay, and so how do you do that? We actually have to. You can't pay them by or you can't give them numbers by the mile. So you have to do things by the hour.
Yeah,
and you have to link it up with ELDs and stuff like that. It's actually quite complex, and being that it's less than 2% of all carriers that pay by the hour, how much work do you want to put into something like that, you know?
Yep.
So we wrestle with it a little bit like that. Right now, we don't do that. We're working on the cents per mile. So guys like yourself, you want to know what your last quarter fuel costs were net, or not net, but gross fuel costs were. You can get that on a quarterly or a monthly basis on there. Eventually, within 2 years, you'll even be able to get it from fuel up to fuel up. You'll get exactly how much your fuel cost is, and we can do that with our software. But there are carriers out there that haul very specialized stuff that they do by the hour. There's some that are even more bizarre, and they do it by contract, and so it's neither hour nor by mile or what. It's just flat. They have a formula that they race, and this is the contract. So you can't base it on hours or on miles or anything, but because there's a very specific formula that goes to it. So not everybody is paid the same, you know. But most everybody is by the mile, but not everybody. And to somebody say, "Oh yeah, I want to work by the hour." Certainly not everybody is qualified to do the work by the hour, because that's a highly specialized thing. You know, oversized, overdimensional, all sorts of variations. You have to be much more educated and understand the whole picture before you're even able to get that job.
Well, this guy I talked to in Wisconsin, he was just pulling a dry van.
Well, it was a Wisconsin. Was it a Canadian guy?
Yeah, from Winnipeg.
Oh, that'd be. Did he own his own truck?
No.
Oh, so he was. Okay, that's just a different way to do payroll, which is cool. They probably just base everything on the ELD.
Yep.
Yeah, on there.
Yep.
That's a little risky sometimes, because then what is the incentive for the driver?
He said it's much more relaxing.
It's much more relaxing because he doesn't have to think. He doesn't push himself very much.
No.
Unless, is he on a scheduled run? That make a difference.
That I don't know.
Because if he's on a scheduled run, then there's less risk for the carrier to do something like that. But if you have to, take a load from Toronto to California and then pick up in Arizona and then go up to Vancouver and then back to Toronto or something like that, one guy can do it in 10 days and another guy 16.
Yeah.
And if you get paid by the hour, what's the incentive for you to do it in 10?
Yeah. There is no incentive.
Yeah. No. Yeah. So the cost per the carrier is that much low. That argument actually was one of the reasons why the entire trucking industry in the early 80s, moved from the non-taxable benefit, the per diem system, to the TL2 simplified method. Because when they were negotiating NAFTA back then, the Canadian carriers, which were still regulated. And so their margins were completely different from the United States market. So they had to balance it out. Well, we have to make sure we know what our costs are before we get into it. And so let's everybody change everything to the mile and change, because everybody was paying by non-taxable benefit and per diem, in that field. So they changed within about 2 years, the entire industry. Vast majority, over 90%, was all changed over to just straight by the mile. Even when my wife and I, Diane and I, we just got our license and we were checking to see other places around, and we interviewed recruiters and stuff like that, and they said, well, we pay 25 cents a mile, but that includes your meals. but that includes your meals. But that includes, everybody was saying that when we did. And it was still in the industry. Drivers were still asking for, well, how much do you pay for meals back then?
That's right. I remember that when I first started.
Yeah. That was when the entire industry moved over. That was, from what I understand, that was the first major thing that the Canadian Trucking Alliance actually implemented as a national thing. And it was, in my opinion, it was one of the worst things that ever happened to the Canadian truck driver, because they used to get paid somewhere around the vicinity of $20, $25 a day. This is back in the 80s, 70s, and 80s.
Oh, that's huge.
Yeah. And
you could eat well for that.
Yeah, back then.
Now you can't even have breakfast.
Now they have the TL2 simplified method, $69 a day. We're talking, 5 decades later. The $69 a day actually works out, on average, across Canada, $17.04. So you're getting paid more 50 years ago than you are now for it. So it was a horrible, horrible exchange. Canada Revenue Agency must have just loved the CTA for that, because they made a blinking fortune on there. And even later on, when Paul Martin took over, because originally when they flipped over to the TL2, 80% of the formula back then, I think it started out as $22 per day, which converted into $5 per of actual tax benefit for it. And then when Paul Martin came in, it went from 80% deductible down to 50% deductible. So I have charts on our website as to it, and if you take a look at the red line on the bottom, you actually see it dipping just in 1 year, and that was when Paul Martin moved it from 80% down to 50%. So the ROI on your meal expenses on that system. So not only they exchanged $20, $25 a day, and then suddenly now they actually lowered the benefit even further. It was terrible. It was about a decade of just squeezing the truck driver out of the industry back then, or higher and higher taxes. They lowered a number and everybody paid higher taxes. Maybe that's the conclusion of it. But anyway, there's a little bit of a history lesson for everybody, but it's now the industry is different, and I think for the next, probably my guess is at least 5 to 15 years, somewhere in that area, there's going to be a boom in the trucking industry, because the economy is going to change quite a bit. I heard a fascinating a history lesson about what has all changed in society every 20 years. If you look at society in 1880, okay, the difference between 1880 and 1900, very little changed in society. There's a little bit here, a little bit there, but not in society. There was no huge leap. But from 1900 to 1920, there was a huge leap.
Huge, yeah.
Because Henry Ford had automobiles and brought that in. There was World War I that was in there. There was a huge amount. In 1903, the Orville guys, they flew their plane. The first plane.
Wright brothers, yeah.
And by the end of that, in 1919 or it's 1918 or whatever, they were dogfighting in the sky. Okay, 20 years ago, nobody could even think of that, right? So there was a huge leap between 1900 and 1920. Then you take a look at society in 1920, and then you leap it to 1940. What all the huge difference is, now we're talking airplanes bombing. We've got you're in World War II. You have tanks. You have unbelievable amount of stuff changing around. It is just that 20 years was astounding in there. Then you take a look from 1940. Now that you got that in your mind, now leap to 1960. The advent of the computer came in during that time. Jets and nuclear war and all nuclear everything. Just completely changed. Then you take a look from 1960, and now you compare 1980, where now you go from just the introduction of computers to 1980, where you have computers in every home.
Yeah.
We're getting everybody was getting a computer, and to the huge society changes between the 60s and the 80s.
Yeah.
And then you look from from now that you got 1980 in your mind, and you say, what happened at 2000? The internet completely changed everything that we're doing.
Yeah.
And like the technology leap now you take a look from 2000 to 2020. Look at the cell phones that we have. Yeah. Look at the social media that is it. Everything is changing, and we're just introducing now artificial intelligence. What's gonna be in 2040? Our society is going to be so different.
Yeah.
It is just bizarre. They're pretty much saying that 50 to 60% of all jobs that are in society right now are not going to be there in 2040.
Yeah, I believe that.
You take a look
I
at
believe that.
Tim Hortons, McDonald's, Wendy's, all of those things. In 2040, how many people do you think they're going to be employed there?
Most of that
My
can
guess
be
is-
automated.
Yeah, my
Most of
guess
it
is
can be-
maybe one person running a whole
Yeah,
store.
just make sure that the computer is working.
Yeah,
Because
Everything
to
can
push
be
a
automated.
button, well, even there's some McDonald's now where I've seen the orders come, they get punched in, and the drink machine just punches out,
Oh,
just
really?
moves all these drink orders along, and the person doesn't have to go fill up the drink. It's taken off of the computer.
Oh my goodness.
And
Yeah.
there's just a row of drinks, and you just take it for that order and that order. I've seen it with drinks. Now, why can't Tim Hortons do that? Like, everything can be
Yeah.
AI assembled.
yeah.
Put it onto a conveyor belt. One person put it into a bag, or AI gets a computer that just puts it in the thing, and one person that will stand there and I did this also.
No, some computer is going to have a tray out there.
Sure, it will. Yeah.
You put your card on there or whatever. You pay for it. You pull your stuff out, and you're gone.
Yep.
Like,
The one thing.
how are we going to train our young people?
What are they going to do?
Not only what are they going to do, but how are we going to train them to show up at work?
Yeah.
Like, they don't have to work.
No.
They don't have to work until they're 20, 25.
That's
I see
true.
society is
It's not good.
that's one of the worst things is not have teenagers work.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, we're talking.
Well, I
Gross,
was
negative,
listening
upside down
to
thing.
something that
Maybe they'll all be involved in sports. I don't know.
yeah, we have more time to go watch our kids play
Play
whatever. Yeah.
lacrosse.
Yeah. I was listening to some of the when the hurricanes hit down south there. Remember the two biggest things that the people were screaming for. Did you ever hear what that was? Water
And internet.
and internet.
Yeah.
Cell service.
Life saving. What out of everything? What did they want? They needed water because then they could drink and live.
Survive,
Right?
yeah.
They didn't ask for food. They were asking for internet
Yeah.
before food.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Elon throws these machines out there
Yep.
and just floods it and it saves the day, so to speak.
Yeah.
Right? But I heard it, and maybe you've heard it too. But did you know that there was a couple places where he opened up lines with his
Yeah, for his
satellites so that your phone doesn't have to go through a phone company. It goes straight to the satellite and to whoever you want.
That's been hooked up for quite a while.
Yes.
But they have to have regulations opened up so that they flick the switch. That all it takes is just to flick the switch.
Yes, it's
It's
available.
supposed to be within a year. Whether that's true or not,
but
I don't know.
I don't know whether they'll.
Because that's going to wipe out Canada.
It's going
Like,
to
Bell Canada,
all the big
all of
companies.
all the big ones, they're gone.
they're
Think of all of
And
the
then
fiber optics they're they're drilling in the ground now. It's all going to be useless.
Obsolete. Yeah. Well, it's just like when I built my house 20 years ago, and I thought I was the smartest guy, and I ran my house full of phone cables and these coax cables. I had cables and everything was set up so I could plug into anywhere in my house with anything. Not all of that is obsolete. They're all big holes in the wall because I just need one router, and every TV is hooked up to the router. Every phone is hooked up to the router. I don't need.
No.
You now only need plugins in a house. You don't need anything else.
Yep.
You don't. It's ridiculous.
Yep. USB ports.
Yeah. It just.
Do you want to go through an exercise? I did this the other day. This is a little bit of a long exercise, but I had to do this when we're re-engineering some accounting aspects of it. So re-engineering is very different than most things, but re-engineering is bizarre. Are you okay with using your imagination, a little bit of your fantasy? Okay. I know you guys, neither one of you are big movie watchers. Are you familiar with Star Trek?
Mm-mm.
You're not.
Well, I know what it is, but
you know Star Trek.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Captain Kirk.
Yeah.
Okay. You know they had to beam me up, Scotty.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so they beam people from from the ship down to the planet and whatever. Let's say they invent that. Okay. And now they can beam people. Okay. Well, let's pretend for whatever reason they can't beam freight. Okay. Which is ridiculous.
Still got a job.
You still have a job as driving truck,
Yeah.
okay? But they can beam people back and forth, but not freight. Okay, let's just use that as the parameters for this. Okay.
Yeah.
So, how much of your job do you actually have to be there for? If you're a single driver like yourself,
Yeah.
Dan, you could beam home every night.
Yep.
When your hours are done, boop, you beam home, you lock everything up, and you spend your night at home. And in the morning, beep, you beam back again.
Yep.
Ooh, cool.
That'd be cool. That'd be
Yeah.
awesome, right?
There'd be a lot of beaming around.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
a lot of beaming around. Okay,
Drive your 10 hours,
so-
then go home.
right.
And
Okay.
then drive 10.
Yeah. Your truck's in Tennessee and you're
Yeah.
Okay. So if you can beam back and forth at any time, multiple times per day, okay, and you're instantly there, okay. Now say, you know what? Let's say you have your own truck. Now hire a driver. Okay, he doesn't have to be a good driver, but he just has to keep it between the ditches. Okay, so he's just he's a D- driver, and so what you want to do is you want to keep him on a double lane highway in his lane. And that's pretty much it. That's all he's doing. Maybe passing somebody, being passed or whatever, but that's his responsibility. At what time during the operation of that truck, when do you beam in and when do you beam out? If you think through that process. Well, maybe you want to beam in when he comes to a city,
Yeah.
right? Maybe you, after the city, you want to beam out again. So he's back on the highway. Maybe you want to beam in when you're fueling up. Maybe not. Maybe you can train him to do that. But you want to beam in when you come to the customs, right? And do, because it's very important to go through the customs things. Maybe you want to, but as soon as you're past the customs, whoop, back on the highway again, beam home, and you're playing ping pong with your wife. So now you can also beam in just as you get to the shipper, and you watch them load. You want tarp, chain, whatever it is, get it all together, paperwork all signed, fine. Okay, you're back in the truck. Okay, you're out on the highway. Good, beam home. Now it's the same when you're in the receiving end. You have specific times when you are needed, right? And those other times when somebody else can do it, and it's very easy, very low risk. There's nothing wrong with that. Then, how much time do you think you're actually going to be at home? Just figure it out in your mind. On average,
a lot.
a lot. Say what? 50%, 70%, 80%,
Probably 70%.
70%.
Yeah,
for sure.
60 to 70%. Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. Buy another truck and put another dumb guy in it. Now you're beaming back and forth with two
Yeah.
trucks.
Yeah.
Okay. Now there could be some overlap, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Because oh boy, you're one guy's at the shipper and the other guy's at the customs.
Yeah.
You know, so you gotta
Yeah.
But you're at home in your office and you got the screen in front of you and you say, okay, well this guy's gonna be there in an hour. This guy's gonna be in an hour and a half. So I'll tell this guy to slow down a little bit and
Yeah.
I'll be quickly get this guy down or whatever. So you're managing time apart from the
Yeah.
two trucks. Okay. Now, how many trucks do you think you can operate? 2,
Wow.
maybe 3? Do you want to increase the amount of time you're home? Then you take your driver, okay, and you educate him a little bit. So now he's going to be in charge of all the fuel.
Mm-hmm.
And bit by bit, you educate him on, okay, this is how you tarp, this is how you chain, this is how you do this, and it frees you up a little bit more time, a little bit more, and more training that you give to that driver, the more you can stay at home.
Correct.
Yeah.
Eventually, you get to the point you can have your third truck. Okay,
Oh yeah. You train till independence.
train till independence.
Well, then you could have a lot of trucks.
Then
Then you can have a lot of trucks.
Yeah.
at that point,
Okay.
it would be almost unlimited.
Yeah.
It would
Okay.
be unlimited.
This basic concept that I've just described is what AI is going to do to jobs. Our productivity is going to be doubled, tripled in a whole bunch of different areas.
Mm-hmm.
Just because we can get something to do something that we ordinarily have to do. If we have a Wendy's that only has one person
Mm-hmm.
in charge of the whole thing, well, then what are the rest of the people? Well, they're free to do something else. They're free to do something else. That's just a little bit trying to get a glimpse of where we're going to be in 2040. I've had to go through this whole thinking as we're developing the software for MOMC.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, within 5 years, if nobody does anything, it will be 10 to 15 or 20. But within 5 years, all of your taxes are basically done by AI. Because I know on the average truck driver, there's only anywhere a low of 5 to maybe 18 to 20 basic questions that are asked of you.
Mm-hmm.
And once you answer those questions, everything just fills in all of the blanks, and you just press a button and you're done.
I heard a while back, AI, when that really takes off, they're not going to, the people are going to start losing their jobs from the top down, not from the bottom up. Because they will be replaced by AI.
Some will, but the difficulty with AI is actually the programming of it. Okay? The understanding, well, what has to be done? The illustration that I used where you have to beam in, and now you have to train that dumb driver to chain in a certain way.
So will they have
You have to
robots? Will they have robots to drive?
In that illustration, in theory, yes. They will have robots. They will have whatever. It's being done for you. Okay? When you're crossing through the border, it's going to be done for you. But all of that education, educating the quote-unquote dumb driver, okay, you're actually telling the computer how to handle. You got 3 skid steers on your deck. How do you chain them? Well, you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. Now, every single time that your truck gets and picks up 3 skid steers, well, it goes into their history. Okay, that's how we chain it. Done. And it's done perfectly every single time. But you now have to chain it for 2 skid steers. Now you have to chain it for 2 skid steers and a combine part. Okay? And all the combinations that you learn through experience can be stored in the what they call it forgets I forget the actual word, data set. In the data set, and it's stored in there so that someday you're going to need it, and you can and eventually, if you've trained your data set how to chain down 1 skid steer, 2 skid steers, and 3 skid steers, and you've trained it to do this, and this, it can now create the combination, and it can you don't have to train it anymore on new sets because it can create its own combinations to say, no, you can fit this and this if you do this and this, and so it learns. It's just basically machine learning, and that's what we're learning right now. And we're in our IT department and figuring out, okay, this is super easy to do, so we can just do that. But now we're dealing with really difficult issues, and there's a whole bunch of contingencies there, and we have to go through dozens, sometimes hundreds of contingencies in order to make it through. In order to make it through the customs department, you got to go 1,500 different contingencies, and now everything is done, and you can sail through. And sometimes even at maybe 95% accuracy. And so you get to that extra 5%. Okay, now under this circumstance, we change the parameters. Now that's in the data set. Now that it's learned something new, and it doesn't have to relearn it again. That's what AI is doing. We forget things sometimes just because stress, laziness, head cold. That's my famous excuse. And we forget things, but a machine will never forget.
No, that's
if the data set is there,
it's
there.
Yeah.
And so in 2040, what is our life going to look like?
Scary.
Well, that's only 15 years. We're going to be somewhere around the 85. We could be there. Do you remember? Do you remember when? What was the first leap of progress that you remember that you go, oh, have we ever arrived? Wasn't for me the cell phone. That wasn't it. A microwave oven.
Oh yeah, in our personal life,
In our personal life,
I
remember we got a microwave oven. And the world is a changing. My goodness. Do you remember what?
Everything else was on TV. Like it was, oh wow, because before that we've gone to the moon, we've done this, we've done that, and now something actual tech involved us right in the house. Or dishwasher,
but a dishwasher I don't think changed your life nearly as much as putting something in the clicking microwave. And then 1 minute and 20 seconds later you got a hot meal. What in the world? A minute and a half. There was another huge leap, and that was in the 1920s. There was a whole bunch of inventions in 1920s. The biggest one that they say affected the household most was the toaster. Because there was a time you just press it down and then it pops up and you have toast. Where all the work beforehand you had to, I don't know what they were doing.
I don't know how to make toast without a toaster.
It was a huge time saver. I don't know. But I mean, the leaps of technology just bring you into completely different.
But they're increasing every year.
In technology.
It's just increasing. It's going. Was it Elon that said? Oh, this is a number of years ago. He said, "We can't keep up with what's being created."
I would agree.
We've created a monster that we don't know how to stop. And
I think there's some great things that are going to come from AI.
Oh, sure.
Everybody thinks AI is just one person or just one program, but it's not. Google has probably the biggest because they have the biggest data set. Then there's Amazon. There is Apple. Tesla actually is another one. Microsoft. There's a whole bunch, and then Elon actually created a new one. Was it XAI or open source AI or open source X or whatever? I can't remember the name of it or whatever. But he started another one just a year or two ago, and basically it's open source AI. I know this because our IT people were talking about some of the things that we have to do and stuff like this, and open source AI. That's what everybody uses, but it's a huge investment in calculating. Back to the original thing. If you to chain down 3 skid steers or whatever, the detail needed to tell you exactly how to do it successfully one time, and then you test it and you retest it under different things, and then and you just extrapolate that into hundreds of different variables, in there. That is a lot of work. That's what we are investing in it. We are looking into it and doing it. We have a huge data set because we have 550, 600 clients. We have access to some data that we can really help speed up our paperwork and make it, I shouldn't say instant, but to some degree, some of it's going to be instant and some of it's going to be processed in roundabout ways. I don't like to use the word that we are using AI, because AI, there's several levels of artificial intelligence. We do machine learning, and we're comfortable at that level, and I can't really see for the next 3 to 5 years doing anything more than machine learning. And realistically, machine learning is everybody already uses machine learning. I mean, your thermostat on your house, with a little thing or whatever, as soon as it gets below a certain, it automatically kicks on it. That's machine learned. That's artificial intelligence. But realistically, learning how to work with AI, that is it's intimidating to say the least. But it is very, very detailed oriented. Yeah. AI is not going to just take over. Like, one isn't going to just take over everything, but it will. There's going to be a number of them operating, and it'll probably go down to 2 or 3. Because some are going to be redundant, and when that occurs, it's going to be applied to a whole bunch of things that we haven't really thought about. Let's think about. I have a pet peeve. I'm not a big believer at all in evolution. Okay, because the math behind evolution, the probabilities of we evolving from monkeys, is ridiculous. Yeah. Like it is way past 10 to the power of 40, which is impossible. That's the number where they say anything more than 10 to the power of 40 is impossible. So you apply evolution to probabilities, and an artificial intelligence will look at that and say, no, it's not possible. We did not evolve. And there's a lot of people who are just going to be furious at artificial intelligence saying that evolution is not possible. Oh, there's something wrong with the programming. Oh, there's something wrong. You're going to see unbelievable debate. Then you're going to have another AI go through it and say, oh, yeah, you know what? It's not possible. And then you're going to have a third one say, oh, yes, it is possible. Oh, yeah, really? You got 3 guys. Yeah. Who's the guy who is monkeying around with the numbers on there? It is like it's going to be fun to watch artificial intelligence debate with artificial intelligence, and then we are going to learn, and we're going to sit there and watch, and we go, those guys are full of crap. Those guys are saying that there's black Nazis. Okay, using that as you know what the black Nazi references or whatever, that's what we're going to watch in real time. And there's going to be some people whose their entire lives are based on a falsehood that artificial intelligence is suddenly going to slap them across the face and say, "Listen, you are a fringe wacko, and a machine is going to tell them that.
See, that brings me back to something, and I can't remember where it was. It was, you'll probably remember the years, but there was years quite a ways back where the chess masters started playing against a computer.
Mm-hmm.
The world chess guy, I think he got beat once, and then he beat the computer, and then eventually the computer kept winning, right?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Now it's impossible for a human to beat a chess. Right. Beat computer.
I was watching that, and I'm going, wow, that's amazing. And I think basically it boils down to the computer has a larger memory recall than a human.
It does a perfect move every time.
Every time, yes.
And humans can't be perfect every single time.
No.
That's what they can actually tell if somebody online is actually cheating. They can scientifically say. There was a huge controversy. Magnus, the big chess master, grandmaster or whatever, he was playing somebody online who was highly rated.
Yeah.
And it was part way through they said, this guy is cheating. It wasn't Magnus, and Magnus said, no, he's too good.
Yeah.
He is too good. He is statistically beyond what is probable to be human. And they found out he was lying.
Okay. So that kind of figures things out here, because we're seeing these computers being able to do things superior to man. Okay. Mm-hmm. Why hasn't computer against computer become a mainstream sport?
Yeah.
Because who wants to watch two computers battle out a perfect game?
That would be interesting. No. Probably somebody has done it. I'm sure that. Yeah,
but it hasn't become mainstream because to see
it would
one
probably
human
be a stalemate.
Possibly, yeah.
Probably it'd be endless stalemates.
Yeah.
That's all.
But to have one human battle wits with another, that's where the competitive thing is. It's not the computer against the computer. Otherwise, and I'm thinking, okay, there is a use, a valuable use for a computer. But that competitive human-on-human spirit is still there. Yeah. Otherwise, we'd have all sorts of computer games against computer games. Why aren't we watching Pac-Man play against Pac-Man? It's that human element that still needs, that actually grabs a person's attention to be involved. Otherwise, to watch two computers drive around in a circle. Who cares?
Okay. Yeah. Now do you remember when this was a number of years ago? They said, the computer is going to change. It's going to make a whole bunch of people, and robots are going to make a whole bunch of people unemployed.
Yeah.
Okay. We remember that 30 years ago, 40 years ago when they did that. Now they're predicting, rightfully so, that 30 to 40% of everybody who's employed today, are not going to be employed in the same thing. In 2040, okay? Mm-hmm. So what are they going to do? Everybody's saying, they're going to be unemployed. Mm-hmm. Well, that's only because we're not thinking what's going to be here in 2040.
Yep.
Probably a significant part of them are going to be involved in a completely different industry.
Yeah.
Because right now, we can have full employment, and we have computers up the yin-yang today.
Yeah.
With our phones and everything else, everybody's working. Yeah. So we can very easily make the assumption in 2040, everybody's still going to be employed, and we just don't know in what.
Yeah.
So if people are in a job right now that is going to be replaced, like in my opinion, in 2040 there will be no dispatchers, zero. It's all going to be done by AI. Why in the world would somebody have to think when that computer can figure things out way better?
Yeah, computers should be able to find loads faster. And figure out the most efficient and when look for higher paying loads. Can do that in seconds as opposed to scrolling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now I got to phone this guy.
It would make sense. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And look do all that. Yeah, that'd make. I can see that.
They could do
quite
it way faster.
Easily.
Most of it is done online anyway.
Yeah. And so artificial intelligence is going to eliminate the dispatcher. There are some things, in my opinion, that are not going to be eliminated, and that's human interaction, one
Yeah.
by one. One-on-one interaction. So they may have a quote-unquote dispatcher who's just talking to the guy. Okay, now you're going to do this, now you're going to do that. But he doesn't actually think through what's doing. He's just reading off a teleprompter or something like that and interacting with the driver or something like that.
There's companies that have that kind
pretty
of
much-
dispatch
pretty much
already.
now, yeah.
One guy picking all the loads and then assigning it to a truck, and there's companies where the dispatcher will phone the driver and do this. Well, what about this? I don't know.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
all it says here. Just go there and
Yeah. They're just doing
how
what's
heavy
on
is
the
it?
screen.
I don't know. It's on the screen.
That's
What is it? I don't know. Just go there.
Yeah, there is a lot of changes.
Yeah.
Like there's things that are taking place right now in some companies that AI has done an awful lot of stuff already.
Yeah.
But dispatchers are going to be basically eliminated. There's some jobs will not be eliminated at all, but they're going to change so much that some of the actual thinking is going to be eliminated. Well, you look right now, like even 20 years ago or 30 years ago, if you took your car to a garage, you had a mechanic listening over there, and he was tiddling, moving this and moving that.
Yeah.
He's listening and that kind of thing. They don't do that anymore.
Oh, no, no.
They plug it into the
Plug it in,
dashboard.
yeah.
Plug it. Oh, you have this error code, that error code, this error code. Okay, got to do this, that. They'll do done.
Yeah.
And so, the jobs have completely changed,
Oh, yeah.
and they will completely change again. And I am a full believer that we are going to have 100% employment in 2040 as well.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of things that it's all going to be changed, but our productivity is just going to double or triple.
Well, the analogy that I come up with is something you mentioned a little while back. We were talking about the transition from horse and buggy to when Ford came in.
Yeah.
Everybody was screaming like, "No, we can't. We're all the jobs, and we're
Look at the blacksmith. Who in the world
who's
going to
do what,
blacksmith
right?"
jobs?
now,
He's been replaced by three mechanics.
yeah.
One blacksmith, three mechanics.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's that we've seen patterns of that, transition of technology, and we're just scared of something new. That's a human.
It's
response.
hard to see into the future all the things that are going to be impacted.
Yeah.
Like if we look and we say, okay, there's going to be fast food places. Let's just assume that there is fast food in places, and not everybody just swallows a pill. I don't know, right?
Yeah.
That pill is but it's a really good tasting pill. I don't know,
Yeah.
right? But if there is nobody that works in fast food,
Yeah.
then what is our kids going to be trained in? How are they going to learn to do a job?
Yeah, because
There's everything's-
lawnmowers are all going to be self-propelled.
Yeah, self-propelled.
Can't
You don't
go
even-
tell them to go mow the lawn.
Yeah,
No.
yeah.
I watched one the other day. We were out, went to a friend's place, and this thing was moving, and I saw it in the corner of my eye, and I thought, what the heck was that? And I looked back, and I thought, I stopped, I backed up. I said, what the heck is that? The thing is mowing the grass. Perfectly straight line. Mowing the grass, all by itself. I'm thinking, oh my goodness. Kathy says, I don't want one like that.
Yeah.
And friends of ours, they have a robotic sweeper.
Oh, vacuum
Oh,
cleaner.
yeah.
And it washes the floor.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And she says, the odd time I have to go to some corner because it didn't quite reach. But she said, that thing is perfect.
Yeah.
Thanks for stopping by Making Your Miles Count. For further Making Your Miles Count productions, call us at 877-987-9787 or download us at makingyourmilescount.com.